Hello, lovely souls. Welcome back to the Awakening to Your Soul Self podcast. I'm Christina, your host, a certified angel messenger and angel Reiki master teacher. In this week's episode, I talked to Sasha Greenidge. She is a mindset coach. We talk about gene keys and human design. So if that interests you, stay tuned. Welcome back, friends, to the Awakening to Your Soul Self podcast. I have Sasha Greenidge here. She is a wonderful mindset coach. Welcome, Sasha.
Oh, thank you for having me here. I'm so excited.
So, Sasha, I always like to start off with the person introducing themselves. So, who are you and what do you do?
So I'm an Ignite certified mindset coach. I went to the Ignite Coach School, mentored by Julie Ciardi. I also have a bachelor's degree in psychology from Mount St. Mary College, New York. I'm a mom of two. I've been a special education teacher for 20 years, and the past 5 years have been working specifically with students with autism.
Oh,
Um,
that's fantastic.
yes.
So, what do you do as a mind coach? What is a mind coach for people that don't know what it is?
So a mindset coach, it's we're very parallel. Mine is obviously in psychology. There's more education, masters or doctorate, things like that. But essentially, at the core, we're both trying to do the same thing. Mindset coach is, I like to say that psychology really has to go back to childhood and kind of work their way up to where you are now. And then what I find is that many people, myself included, get to a point where you've done years of therapy and things like that, and you're okay where you are right now, but now it's like, now what? And where to move
Mm.
forward. And that's where, for me and for many of my clients and people that I kind of speak to, feel like they've gone through all this. They really don't need to go too much back to psychology. Their therapist kind of says, go forth. And mindset is like, where do you go now? Where do you want to be now? Because these are the questions that aren't really being asked out there. It's like, okay, great, you've worked on this issue and things like that, and you have the tools now from the psychologist, psychiatrist, whatever. And now it's like, okay, I need to do things on my own to manage day to day and to set goals for where you need to be. That's where mindset coaching really comes in.
Oh, wow. So, it's basically like a level up from the therapy. Like you now you're trying to see yourself further and kind of use all those tools in your toolbox and do something with them.
Right. And then it's, still like, using their tools and then now developing your own because now it's not this seeking from like outside of us, which many of us do. We're just trying to find the answer. And we just study so many things and we're not looking within ourselves. And that's where all the answers are. I know that is, I always say that's like the cheesiest thing, but it's also like it's straight facts.
Yeah.
Um, and that's what I've learned. I mean, I'm 42. It took me that long, but it's just all of it. Like I was, when you try so hard to be this person and what is this person doing and everything else. And then I find that like many of the people that I was like looking to be like, oh, they must have all the answers. They're doing this. They don't have it together. And life isn't
Right.
so, great. So it's good to know what your path is. And even if they on the inside and outside, they're doing well, your path will not look the same. And that's where, a lot of my work comes in to show people that.
So do you have people that don't know what path they want to take?
I think that's most of us,
Okay.
honestly. Like,
Right.
I think that's most of us. I think many of us are on the right path. What I find is like, there's a lot of people that are like, well, I do love my job, or some people just innately just followed this, their design, their purpose. And they do well with that. But then there's more. Some people, even with all of that success and that confidence and things like that, they want more. I wasn't so lucky. I kind of had to start from the bottom, and kind of work my way up to finding that. But a lot of us don't know, or we think we know, and that we're in the right job, or we're in the right relationship and everything, because that's what society and everybody else tells us to do. And what I found out was, for me, is that so much of this was like when my coach had asked me one simple question: what do you want? And every answer I gave, I had to kind of stop myself. Oh, well, I really would like a really nice big house. And then I would ask myself, why? And because that's
Right.
what the standard of success is, right? That's how people
Yeah.
measure your success. And it's like, oh, maybe I want to become a teacher again, like maybe further my like education. And then it's like, why? Because then it became, well, I want to appear like I am confident enough, like maybe I
Yeah.
should go back for my master's in psychology, and then I just came to realize that it didn't really matter having this. I can have an alphabet after my name. It,
Yeah.
who was I really doing that for? For that part was for everybody else. Going back for teaching was for everybody else. And it took me a really long time. Well, I quickly realized like I was living everybody else's life. And if
Mm.
everybody else around me wasn't happy, I was like, I based that on my own happiness. And that was problem like numero uno. Like I could not, differentiate myself from my own happiness and what everybody else was responsible for, like their own mess, their
Yeah.
own stuff. And that's where a lot of people are. And sometimes you could be like you're in corporate and you might find that that's not really supposed to be the place for you. Maybe you're supposed to be a solopreneur or an entrepreneur, or, something else. Or maybe within that company, you're not meant to be in this cubicle. You're meant to really be up there in the board and doing really incredible things, but you don't know your potential and your capability. So I see all different aspects of where people are. Some people are pretty high and they're like, but I feel like there's more. And then some people are
Hmm.
kind of where I was, and it was just like, oh my God, I have no idea where I am, supposed to be, and what I like and what I want to do and what I'm capable of.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I get all walks of all of us, you know.
Okay. Yeah, that's I mean, life is messy and we all have different paths. The spirit likes to show me is there's multiple lanes and you just choose whichever lane, and then if that's not the lane, then you go back to the next one, and it's a trial and error kind of process, and that's kind of how life is supposed to be. But I'd like to go back, like, how did you find mindset coaching?
So ironically, it's kind of like how my design is,
Okay.
which I never really liked. So I first started where, okay, I was teaching, and
Yeah.
I was like, I really need more. I want more. A network marketing opportunity came up. Um, Incredible company, but business wise was not for me. But
Mm.
I'm determined. I'm always like, I'm going to make this work. I'm going to do my best. So I went and I hired a coach, a business coach.
Hmm.
And then lo and behold, from that, she was like, I am discovering new things, new modalities. I want to do this different. And she opened up her own coach school. She was certified in the life school,
Hmm.
and believe it was Brooke Castillo. And she studied under the late Bob Proctor, thinking into
Wow.
results and things like that. Before he died, she got really close with him and his family. And so we've, uh, through her, have learned so much from Bob. And she developed her own. And then through that, we started learning gene keys, because gene keys in human design started to fill that gap of what Bob was saying. But he
Okay.
talked paradigms and things like that. But it's like, what are they? What are like your paradigms? It could be anything. And that's where this fits perfectly into everything. It fits beautifully. So I love the way things came about. But that's how it came about for me. I'm meant to, part of my design is trial and erroring my way through life, through
Yeah.
success. So if something doesn't work, and that's how it was. It was like, okay, this wasn't working for me, and I always wanted to do things right the first time, but that's not, I'm beginning to really have empathy for myself and just being like, this is the way it is. All right,
Yeah.
great. Now I know that's not for me and it's not working. I get to move on so much faster. And then from my mistakes, teach everybody else what not to do, or what might not be the path that's like great to go down, and how to do things faster. So,
Yeah, that's amazing. I think a lot of us with society and with, our self-doubts within each other, it's how do we get to where we want to go and not keep hitting the brick wall over and
yeah,
over and over again? And I think you just really clarify that you try it and it's not, and you just move on and do the next thing.
yeah. And that's the entrepreneurial way, which is like, if any of you, even whether you go and look at your design, and um, that's kind of like my brand profile. There's a line 3. Even if you don't have that, but you're an entrepreneur, that's the way. It's just trial and error. Nothing is going to come, easy, when you have your own business or you're going and trying to do something really different, out there. It's always going to be this way.
Exactly. So, what are some methods that you use with your clients?
So I began using, my coach is still my mentor, Julie Ciardi. So I've used her Becoming Her is the Secret program, which is absolutely fantastic. But what we started to do, and what I started to do, is to take, gene keys, mostly,
Okay.
because human design, I am still learning. I think that that will be a forever project. But those are the two modalities that I use because, like I said before, it completely takes what your paradigms are, and it's like, and it puts a name to them. And then
Hmm.
from there, what I love to call myself now is like, I'm a mindset surgeon. So what would have taken me a couple of weeks of asking questions and things like that, of course, I'm only a guide. So I'm only here to kind of speak with you. And these are things that have to come about yourself, even the study of your own core 4 gene keys, your activation sequence, gene keys. It's really up to the client to study themselves. But what I'm able to see is looking at those gene keys and the line numbers that, accompany them. I'm able to see exactly what your shadow, aka your paradigms are, your gifts, which was really incredible for me to see, and for so many people to see, oh my gosh, I'm capable of that. Like, that's my gift. And then the city, your highest frequency, which we touch, we occasionally touch, like in some really incredible circumstances, we can hit our highest frequency, but we tend to want to just kind of not want to, but we tend to strive for our gift to kind of like have
Mm.
our city and our shadow kind of meet at the gift. Um, and so I'm able to be like a surgeon and just really kind of speak to somebody and say, this is like, this seems to be, a conflict that comes up a lot. And let's say for me, one of mine is indifference. So if somebody had something like that, it's like, I can say, when conflict comes up, you seem to be very indifferent and you kind of shut down. And it almost resonates because it's you. This is
Yeah.
you I love, gene keys, human design, they're science meeting spirituality and ancient, like, knowledge. That's all this is. And I think what's beautiful and what, like, I really try and, share is that it's a study of you. And I know there's so many people that are like, she doesn't know as much as she thinks she does with gene keys and human
Hmm.
design. But Ra Aruhu, who is the, creator of human design, and Richard Rudd, who created gene keys, they didn't want gurus. They wanted
Right.
people to study themselves. So through even my study of myself and trial and erroring through all of this to bring people this knowledge, it's supposed to be at your learning level. And so it's an incredible tool for people to study in their own way. But it can be overwhelming, which is why I love to be a guide for people. And I just live for that moment where they're like, oh my gosh, I really see myself for the first time. Because that's what I had. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Like as much as I love what I do with children,
Yeah.
where I'm supposed to go, like just based on my gene keys and my human design, whoa, like
Hmm.
that would have been playing so small. And that's what I want people to see in themselves. Either, oh my gosh, great, I'm on the right track. But I now like, where is it? How much further can I go? What is my ultimate potential? We'll never achieve all of it in one lifetime, but like, my gosh, it just to even try and learn so much about yourself that you wouldn't have, I would have never, I probably wouldn't have been doing something like this
Right.
today. No, absolutely not. But based on my gene keys and my human design, I can see even going into my 40 cycle, my whole throat is lit up like a Christmas tree. So
Yeah.
I'm meant to, and never would I have thought, like in college or high school, would I be like, oh no, I'm speaking? Are you kidding? No.
Right.
But here I am, like to get this word out, this message out to really help people. Like, so it's absolutely incredible. And it's completely blown me out of my comfort zone.
Yeah. And I definitely am tuning into your energy, and I definitely feel like this is exactly where you're supposed to be. And you had a choice to follow those breadcrumbs, to get that coach, to do that mindset course, to learn about the changes. Like this is your complete path. Like,
Yeah.
and I love that you're helping others, you're guiding others. I've dabbled a little bit in human design, but it's huge.
It
Like,
is. And that's what the problem I found was that somebody would look at your, and it is overwhelming, like because that's why I really start with the gene keys first, and even then people are like, all I see are a bunch of circles, but like that's why you have like somebody just to guide. But
yeah.
I found that a lot of people, and there are incredible people that know so much, and they're great, but it's not really helpful if I'm giving everybody the answers. I could tell you exactly what each of your spheres are, what they all mean, and where you
Hmm.
can find them on your human design chart, but that doesn't help you grow. And I found that like I was getting, now knowing my human design, you're telling me, oh, you have a strong will center. That completely has a different meaning to me now because I know like, oh my gosh, that specific like sphere, like that's
Yeah.
in my gene key and here, and what that means in this center, colored in, defined, means something different than what somebody just blanket told me. But I had to
Yes.
study that for myself, and I had to go through this stuff, my activation sequence and my gene keys first, because that's 70% of who you are and who you be, along with your profile numbers. And like I said, I give people so much credit, but give the power to the people
I love that.
to study themselves. Because a lot of people, I've had people say, oh, well, you don't know enough I don't have to know about you specifically. And this is something where I definitely will be going to the Human Design Institute from Ra Uruhu, but
Hmm.
it's something now that like anybody really can do. That's what they wanted. They didn't want this big hoopla of just everybody kind of just teaching. They because that's not how as a collective everybody finds themselves. We all
Right.
each need to find ourselves, like how I found me and other people have found themselves through guides, self-study. Richard does say you do need a guide, but it's your work. Like every
Yeah.
day I'm studying my own work. My coach studies her own work and just guides us when we need help. But it's absolutely incredible. And um, it's really hard. I think readings and things like that give
Hmm.
yourself the knowledge and the reading and the power to kind of learn this yourself, and go have somebody step by painstaking step. It is like, it is really, at the beginning, it's like, whoa, but it's incredible. Like just the first sphere. I was with somebody for like, I don't think we moved on from that life's work sphere for like 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks,
Wow.
because it was like, whoa, just going through the shadows again and again and again, which we're intimate with. They really know that. But then to go into the gift and be like, oh my gosh, like, how do I get there? And then moving on to the evolution sphere and then moving on to the breakthrough. But this is all a slow process, knowing what these are and really going through it, because you have to really contemplate on these. Some of this stuff is really hard to hear, especially some of the Richard goes into really deep detail in his book. And that's what I recommend to all my clients, just giving them, get that book, study. Mine is beat to you know what, and like written all and highlighted. And every time I reread it, something new comes up, because we're different every
Yeah.
time we read it. Every time you've learned something, you've and then acted accordingly, you learn something different. And so it's so, so powerful.
Yeah, I mean, it's so powerful to know that those parts about yourself. I mean, as we grow up, as we get older, we're just like, okay, this is who I am. I know who I am. But when you go into these healing modalities of gene keys and human designs, you just have, at least for me, when I was going through my human design, I just had some aha moments like,
Yeah.
that's why I'm like that. And
Yes.
that's why I don't get along with that person. You know, like
Yes.
what I mean? It's totally like a life-changing moment where
Yeah.
you're
It's
like, oh,
your soul is
that's
like,
me.
finally, you're listening to me.
Yes.
That's what it feels like. It's like finally you're like tapping in, like, because I mean, we all, what's done is done, but like really not listening to my intuition for
Yeah.
so long. And everybody's is different. And that's another thing you learn too, when you learn the human design aspect, is that some people, I have to wait for clarity, and I never did, like, which is why
Hmm.
shopping and all these other things were major problems. But I have now have to sit and say, okay, I have to wait for clarity. And some people, it comes from their just instinct, their
Hmm.
survival center, and they can just sit there, and that's what they need to do. They need to make a decision based on like how they feel, their gut reaction. So it's incredible, and that changes things a lot for people.
Yeah.
Like you don't waste a lot of time, or for people with gut instinct, it saves them so much time. All of these things. So
Perfect. So can you go a little bit deeper into gene keys and then I'll go a little bit into human design? Because I personally never heard of gene keys, so I'm
yeah,
curious.
so Gene Keys with Ra Aruhu's blessing, Richard Rudd created the Gene Keys.
Hmm.
What I'm finding now is he took what the most important part. So if you looked at your human design chart, the top four numbers on your conscious and unconscious side. So
Yep.
on your conscious side, that's where your life, Richard calls your life's work and your
Okay.
evolution. So on the top right, and I'm trying to remember my top right, and then the one right under it, that's your conscious side. That's your psychology, as we like to
Okay.
call it. And then your physiology is your unconscious, which people aren't really aware of. And that's the top and the first and second number. That's your radiance and purpose. So, what I tend to do, because this is so large for people, is I just take them through the activation sequence, which is everything in green. There, and like I said, it's the life's work, it's your
Hmm.
evolution. It kind of goes in a zigzag, and you follow that through. So where your life's work and your evolution is, that is your biggest, not problem, but like conflict. So anytime
Okay.
somebody's really coming up against something, I immediately look there. I immediately look there. That's most 99% of the time, that's where that's coming from. If not, like, depending, I can go someplace else. But your life's work is that whole this whole thing is your purpose, like the whole sequence. There are three parts to it. So there's that activation sequence that's with the numbers beside it, your profile number, that makes up 70% of who you are. So it's
Wow.
really important to just, even, I tell people, even if you don't go through the Venus sequence, which is in red, that's how your relationships and childhood stuff, I'll just call it.
Mm.
It's really hard. I still am working through a lot of that. And then what he calls your pearl sequence, which is your prosperity. It's a beautiful, beautiful path that you follow about learning about yourself.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but I focus, like, unless anybody really wants to go deeper, I really focus on the activation sequence. And then um, I'm very transparent. I'm still learning human
Mm-hmm.
design, but the basics and where they are, and knowing where they are in the body graph is really important. So I kind of incorporate the two together, and it's been like a game changer of added like help for people. And because, like you said, it's who to work with, who you're not, what are your
Yeah.
strengths, and what is connecting together. So my radiance and purpose connect together. And that's my biggest strength. So there's a lot of that. So I really, just to kind of be clear, I just kind of
Yeah.
go into that activation sequence, because that right there changes lives. It will,
Yeah.
yeah, like, if you're not blown away, I don't know, even if you're so sure of yourself, there's something in there that you did not know before, especially on that unconscious piece. I never knew myself, like, as, I'm
Like,
like,
yeah,
what,
on that
an
level.
adventurer? I'm supposed to, like, the messing up part, it makes sense. That was like, okay, like, just trial and erroring through life. And that's going to be with me for a while, even through my whole life, actually, because of where my sequencing is, the way that goes. There's always a 3 in my profile. Um, but I just, like, I learned so much about that unconscious part. And now going into, just, I'm jumping around, but like,
That's
with
okay.
design, there's cycles. And I'm in my 40 cycle, and I felt it probably when I was like 38.
Mm.
Something was going to shift. I was like, something has to shift. I'm going through that now, and now we kind of say, you just kind of go into, like, I'm a 1-3 right now, but then I go
Mm-hmm.
into like a 3-5 in my 40s. So I'll always be a 1-3. That's me to the
Mm-hmm.
core. But then now that 3-5, so this, like, authority, this leader,
Mm.
um, that really is meant to step up and help people. And what's ironic is that my 3740, that channel connects, and that is to lead women
Mm.
to their purpose.
Yeah.
This is how I do it. So it really, it's a beautiful, everything together. Like, I know some people are like, they're all about human design, or they're all about gene keys, but I strongly suggest starting with the gene keys, going through that, and then start to study your human design, because I think it's just so, so powerful. Definitely with a guide, because otherwise it's choppy. Because I would find one person, and they would find something interesting, and then I'd find somebody else, and they'd find something else interesting, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my goodness. But like this, the way this was done, it really slowly, and always slowly at your own pace, it blew the lid off of my life, and help me set boundaries. And
Mm-hmm.
I have blinders on now. So as much as I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I could read tarot, or I wish I could do this, or I wish I could do that, I am so happy for everybody now.
Yeah.
And it's just like, how can I either collab with this person to bring my message forward and to help me help them bring their message forward and what they're supposed to do? But I know my path. I don't
Yeah.
deviate from it. We're human. I have my shadows, like, but
Hmm.
now when those come up, I'm like, oh, we're being, we're being, indifferent again. Like, and I know where that goes, but I don't sit there for months in it now. Now I pick myself up. I know where it's coming from. And as we scale up, we're always going to fall back, but everything is a learning experience. Um,
Yeah, and we're all
which,
still human, so we're all
yes,
always going to default back to what we know.
exactly. But you have a path now.
But you have
And
a
it's
path
like
and
when
you
people,
know, yeah.
right. And it's the potential. I constantly remind clients, you're supposed to be one of them. I love it so much. I think it's Gene Key 8, and it's the rebel with a cause. And that is
Ooh.
such a, I know, don't you love that? And
Oh.
every time it's just, she gets down on herself, it's like, you're that rebel with a cause. When you step into your gift and you're manifesting, you have to step into that power. When you step into that gift, it doesn't matter what everybody else is doing. You're not supposed to be doing what
Mhm.
everybody else is doing. You're beyond that. And whatever you put your mind to manifesting comes. There's a power in that. I think this is a lot of empowering work for people when they realize, like, really, like, it's, if you're a sciencey person or logic like my daughter, it's science. We,
Yeah.
Albert Einstein said, we are frequency. That's all this is, a law of attraction and things like that. But all of that stuff from The Secret and all of this explains that. This, like, your whole being, your gene keys, your human design, whatever, it's a bunch of energy and frequency. And that's all it is. If you're spiritual, then you completely get this. This is who you are. And they're, um, but that's what it just works. It just works.
Yeah, I mean, you it's just the way Spirit showed me, it's just a link. Like
Yeah.
this is you and that's it. Like
Hmm.
and you find more things about yourself. I know I said it earlier, but I can't get over it. I mean, you just learn so much about yourself
Right.
and where you could go. I mean, it just changes your whole life
Yeah.
because you're like, oh, I have this. I can do that plan now, or I can do that. So when you go through your like the gene keys in human design, when you get to, I think you said the life's work part.
That's the start. Yeah, we start there. Um,
So when you just, work that with a client, when you're working with them, do you have an inkling or do they have an inkling of what their life's purpose is before you get into the gene keys, or do you find that out while you're
No,
doing?
so I usually start with like what I call a clarity call, and to figure out where it is, where the holes and
Okay.
where they're at. The first thing I explain what the life's work sphere is, like before even some of the sessions and things like that, like it's really going through what these things are. And then when we start, it's, mine is the 9. So they should have that book because that's your Bible at this point, and basically the compass to all of this. And you look at that and you study that, and immediately, like, the everything that's written down in that shadow, you immediately start studying yourself. It's detailed in a good way, though. It's just you're
Okay.
reading, and it's just like, I suggest journaling as this is done, or taking note, however you want to sit and contemplate this. And then a lot of stuff comes up for people because this might be stuff that they're aware of, but now it's a deeper level, and he really goes into where this comes from, or how this might come about, or how, like, some, that most of them are victim. kind of mentalities and these shadows and things like that. Um, and depending on how people want to study, sometimes the shadow just really like just reading that in itself is a lot. And then
Yeah.
we just kind of go in there. Some people can kind of read through all of it, their shadow, their gift, and their city, and we can come together and kind of talk about, oh wow, this is where I really was sitting for a really long time, but upon reading the gift, this is something I never saw myself being, that person at that gift level or city level. And then we can go and talk about these things and why that is, because I've had somebody who has almost the same activation sequence as me and even the same profile number, but because I grew up differently, whether because I'm Black or whether because I grew up in the suburbs and they the city, or
Hmm.
or from across the world, we're always different. Their stories
Right.
are different. So even if you have the almost the same, like some of them are reversed to somebody else, like my son and I have something flipped, where his life's work is, and like it's crazy. But we take it step by step as people want to go. It's deep work, and that's just now you can see how in one sphere you can just take that time if you need it. Um, and that's really where we go. And that really helps people to really open their eyes to see themselves, to confront a lot of things, and to have the courage to move forward with this, because that's what it is. You raise your frequency immediately
Hmm.
the second you have courage. I forget
Absolutely.
where we were told, it's, oh my God, it's a staggering amount of people, um, that are at the victimhood. I think it's like a
Mm.
crazy number, like almost 70 something or 80% of the people are in the
Wow.
world are in victim frequency. They're not, you know, but
Yeah.
I gotta get the name, but it takes one person to affect like thousands, like that are
Yes.
at a higher frequency. But if you take that courage, like if courage is that halfway point below, marking above and beyond below, like
Hmm.
if you take that step, immediately people change to kind of, because all of the shadows are just fear and victim based. And taking that courage to really stand and look at them, because a lot of times, like, I didn't want to admit a lot of things about myself, especially the way that my unconscious profile sometimes would act towards people. um, they call it the escape artist, which is horrible. Like in
Whoa.
relationships, yeah, like, and I was like, I don't, and then it's like, yeah, you do want to avoid conflict. You don't like it at all. So what do you try and do? You try and escape that situation. But it's a
Mm.
lot of confronting. It's a lot of honesty with yourself, but that's what we talk about together, and shifting that, because that it's you, it's nobody else. It's not like an idea, oh maybe this is your problem. This is your problem. This is your shadow. And you might have examples and confirmation of this throughout your life of how this continues to come up, and you have to face it. And I love the way Richard writes, but there's other things too, but Richard's book is the greatest place to start, um, and then kind of moving into other things if it resonates more and more as
Okay.
you learn to study more. But I think his work, I mean, he made the Gene Keys, and
Yeah.
like, you know, but it's absolutely incredible. Just breaking down you as a person, and then by the time you get to that unconscious piece and what you're supposed to be radiating out and sharing out this purpose, it's amazing, like, to
I mean,
step into this
incredible.
person and just say, okay, like, I know, psychologically, I know we're always in our mind, right? And we
Yes.
really got it. And that second piece, that unconscious piece, if you're looking at your human design, it's that left side. And it's the left side, and those two spheres, the green spheres, to the left as well. It just, like, that's you. And I've had this now being my lead conscious part in my Uranus opposition, I have to step into that 3 and I need to lead with that person now. So it's just really, really beautiful learning, and there's shadows to that as well, because the numbers, so like I'm a 9-1 and then a 16-1. So that line 1 that go attaches to those, that's what I'm talking about with that profile number.
Okay.
And then my radiance and purpose, it's my 40 as my radiance and 37 as my purpose, and then I'm a line 3 with those two. And so that's that, but that in themselves, that line 3 and that line 1, they both have their shadows, gifts, and frequencies too. So we have to go deep into those as well. Um, but it's beautiful, and we all love ourselves enough. We love to study ourselves and talk about ourselves, and so it's not very painful. But it's
Yeah.
very enlightening, very, very enlightening.
It's almost like a therapy 2.0, but it's like really
Yeah.
getting to know yourself
Yes. And
on a
not
whole
taking,
deeper level.
yeah, and not taking, it takes the guesswork out, like, of it. And because I would listen to a lot of people and they have beautiful things to say, and we hear quotes all the time, like, just, oh, change your mindset, um
Mm-hmm.
let go of these paradigms. Well, what the hell are they? Well,
Yeah.
what are they? Now, like, I don't, like, I am, as Richard says, we have all 64. We have all of them in us. But the ones that are coming up in your profile, it's just like, picture them as just raised up. And so that's where your
Oh.
focus goes. We all have them. If like, if somebody was like, well, I feel indifferent sometimes, and that's not in my profile, that's not what you're meant in this lifetime to kind of, that's not coming up for you. Also, a lot of people say, well, there's some things that are lit up. They call them gates in human design. I just like to call them like keys or traits or whatever,
Mhm.
um, that come up there, that aren't in the gene keys. And that's fine too. Like, there's some that aren't in my gene keys, but like Richard just took what he thought was important, but when you go there, there might be some more in there as well. And then, but when you're ready to go in and study human design, you can take a look at those. Um, but this is like a really, really great start to, like, this is the main part. Again, that 70% is just the activation sequence. And if you're looking at human design, those top 4 numbers, those are important. And then we can go into nodes and all of that stuff, but that's like once you've really
Yeah.
started to get to know all of this. But like the gene keys itself, like, you will change your life and at least make you aware of a lot of things and why certain relationships are made to work or might not, or how you
Mm-hmm.
work or not. But the empathy that I have with so many people, especially like my son, looking at his gene keys and then further looking at his design. He's open in his energy center, which makes him what they call a projector in human design, or in BG5, which is human design for business, an advisor, and all the rest of his body graph is defined.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you are defined, it's almost like you are you're almost like defined and not set in your ways, but it's almost like you have nothing to really learn from the outside. It's an inner kind of journey. And so when he's so stubborn and, he just doesn't, he doesn't have the energy to kind of like for school, and like, why doesn't he work hard? I'm what they
Mm-hmm.
call a manifesting generator or express builder in BG5, where it's like, go, go, go. I could work endlessly. I can, like, um, he just can't. And he is overwhelmed. And I stopped, and like certain things, like right now he's riding his bike, where I normally would be like, oh, do you have homework today? Or, blah, 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 blah. Like, it's just letting him be with, and he has to be around a small group of friends. He's very locked into himself. So suggestions and things like that because he's so defined everywhere else. Head center, conceptualization center, will center, every single center, except for that energy that makes him a projector. He can't.
Yeah.
He literally can't. And what people need to realize is if you know projectors, um, or it's hard for them. Like we live in a builder world, like where you or like a generator world where it's go go go,
Yeah.
and they're not meant to do that. They're just meant to tell us what to do and what, like, how to
Yes.
advise us what to do. But a lot of things, like, so I'm very, it makes you also very aware after you've studied yourself, and we never stop. I have Richard's audio, and I pick something that day, and I'll listen to like my life's work sphere that day. Like he'll go into it. And or I'll read about something. So it's always repetition, repetition, repetition. But once you get that down, you can start to study other people in your family, and you just start to have a patience like for it. I just
Hmm.
found out that I compromise my husband's life's work. Why do we butt heads over certain things all the time? I compromise him. We compromise each other, and like I think 6 different spots, where 3 where I compromise him and 3 where he compromises me.
Oh, wow.
So it's not, even though you have things that attract, it's not always like the good attraction kind of thing. It's like, whoa, this is why we bump heads. Like, and he doesn't study this, but
No.
but he would know that like you're doing something that is, there's something in, and it's not my fault. There's no blame or anything like that, but
Right.
there's something about my being, or whatever channel or whatever it is that connects with that. And it's probably, I don't even think it was something that was significant enough for my design. Like, it's not one of my main things, like a node or my life's work or anything like that. So I have to be mindful of that, things like that. But it's incredible work. And when you start to study yourself and you feel comfortable with yourself, and you want to study your family, kids, things like
Yeah.
that, you're able to parent, or be a better partner in a different way, or better friend.
Yeah. So the way Spirit's showing me right now is you know yourself, so you know how to project yourself, but also be conscious of others and how they are, kind of like how you said with your kids and your husband. But I think like also not everyone is like you. We're all built differently.
Yes.
And also Spirit's showing me like we are two people separately, but we are interconnected with
Mm-hmm.
certain gates and certain channels and things. So it's important, but they're also showing me like basically we're taking our brain out and we're changing the mindset because we're knowing more about ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's basically how you were talking about being a surgeon. They literally showed me taking the brain out and you're just like turning it because you are and helping people to learn more about themselves. But if we can't go to you, we can start with Richard's book and
Yeah.
start slowly studying. And then if we find that we need more help, then we can go find a guide.
Yeah. And so that's what like. It was a lot of work. And so that's why I reconfigured how I kind of do things now. So there's people out there that are really interested. And so what I do is like now I have like a bottom tier where people can just learn. Like I have
Mhm.
something and they can just kind of learn. Then anybody that wants to go deeper, I kind of have this like middle tier. And then there's like this one-to-one, we go all in together, a lot of curated things, a lot of amazing like material to kind of go in, because I had to break it down. I realized it's a lot. And but you also have to be ready for that work too.
Yeah.
And like a lot of people learn, and then it's, and then it's like, okay, this is awesome. Now, okay, I need to work with you, like one to one.
Hmm.
Whereas that, like, now they can just get this education piece. So I had to, even with myself, say, okay, because it's a lot of work. We get really, I get very deep with people and we form like a bond in a relationship, but it also has to be, like really ready for it's life changing though. It really, really is life changing. Um, so I'm just so excited to share that and kind of meet people where they're at now. Like that's important.
And you must love to see the progress that you make when you
It's just
start
the
with somebody.
aha. It's the aha
Yeah.
in people's face. Oh my gosh, when they're it's either I finally see me, I love that,
Hmm.
or it's just like or just like whoa, like that, or just really when we by the time we get to the unconscious piece, and it was my reaction to, which is what I love to see in other people,
Mm.
is like, you're telling me that that's me, or like I could see some of it, but oh my God. And then when they go in and it's just like, okay, well, you've had this like breakthrough. Let's step in to kind of, you still have shadows and stuff like that there, but once you identify them
Yeah.
and you kind of accept that this is what is going to constantly come up, and you accept that, because I think what everybody tries to do is push these things away.
Hmm.
Once you've accepted that, like I've accepted all of them, some of them are really frustrating, but I've accepted them. I'm more aware, and you learn that that's how we just quickly learn to get out of these things. But that's the piece that's like, oh my gosh, that's the person that your soul is waiting for you to see,
Mm.
is that unconscious piece, which is not what the mind can manipulate. Because
Right.
for me, especially with my line one, which loves foundation, which loves knowledge, which loves to like just kind of, oh, well, there's an answer for that. I can find that. Hear physiology, like just that going with that intuition. That's where that piece comes in, where it's like, well, you got to try it. I have to do, not learn more. That's my
Exactly.
conscious. That one was like, learn, 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 learn. And that's what made me afraid to, like, even here, before every podcast, before any speaking thing, I'm like, do I know enough to be speaking about this? My
You do.
line one shadow will come up. Am I like qualified? Am I this? Am I that? Should I get another certification? Like all this stuff comes up. Line three steps in. It sounds like a psychosis. I promise you guys, I am not. My line three comes in and it's like, we got this, shoves that out the way, and we do, we're on, and I love it.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
due. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, you're definitely taking action. You definitely know your stuff.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah, and I just love it. And this is what I want, I really love to do. It's just I've always wanted to help people, but it seemed like it wasn't like enough, like, or on
Mm.
a good enough thing. But then you keep ignoring and keep ignoring. But taking a step out of something, even the network marketing was a step out of my comfort zone, but it was like still like more and then more, and opening your mind more and your spirit and your soul more. And it just kind of like ripped open like myself, and
Hmm.
I still just even now digging so much deeper into the human design piece is just like, oh my gosh, there's more. And,
Yeah.
so you can spend your life really doing something positive, learning about yourself, and then being able to take this new, not even new, it's always been within you, to
Yeah.
the collective. But for me, it's more authentic. I just was not authentic in that network marketing company. I was authentic in my job. I loved it. But when you just something fear kept me in the job that, I'm
Yeah.
soon to be leaving now. Um, and it just doesn't, like, it just gets to the point where you're getting shoved out. Like,
Yeah.
I just feel like, God, universe, whatever you believe, for me, it's God just like, it's just,
Hmm.
you got it. what are you doing? I'm gonna now shove you off this like cliff. Go. Like this is it. Um,
Time to run.
yes, time to run and do, and not just like sit here. But it's scary. I'm already
Very
like,
scary.
what am I gonna do? Like, is this gonna whatever? But now it's just whether it does or it doesn't. Like I did what I'm supposed to do, which is spread a message and to really help people because I really don't know where I would be. I shudder to think where I would be if I left my life in the hands of, I know this sounds horrible, my husband and his, like, what he deems as happiness for me, or
Yeah.
my parents, or even my friends, or coworkers, and just their expectations, which are very limited because everybody wants us to, they
Certain
want us to be
standard.
safe. Yeah, a standard and to be safe. Just set this standard and be safe. And that's what your shadow wants you to do. It's kind of like your noisy roommate. And it's just, and I tell people now, I don't need more. I already have one. I have like several in my shadows. I don't need any more. Thank you. I
Yep.
got this. But you just learn that, like, oh my gosh, I would have just been all that I ever was. And I like to, like, ever since my coach shared the quote from I think it's Theodore Roosevelt, where he says, "We all go through life safely tiptoeing our way to death." Isn't that like so
Yeah.
powerful?
That's
And it's
very
like you just
powerful.
say that to yourself, like, we just all safely tiptoe our way to death safely. We're just trying to get there safely
Yeah.
without, like, and that I just found that disturbing, like really disturbing. And how we wait to start our life at retirement, or even now people my age, like, oh my god, crisis, let me buy a boat or a car, or like something,
Yeah.
like not enough. And this is your creation point. And like they talk about the Chiron at 50, which is like your ultimate wisdom and everything. Like, remember, we used to value elders and wisdom and all of these things
Yeah.
instead of trying to avoid being old and, all of this. So I'm looking forward to my 50s because the 40s has brought me more fun than I ever had in my 20s, you
Right.
know? So I'm obsessed. Like, I'm just so obsessed. And it's not, and you'll become obsessed with yourself in the healthiest way possible. And here and there you might look at what somebody else is doing, but if it's, you just say, but that's not your path, and you'll
Yeah.
see how beautiful your path is. Like some other people, it's like, oh my god, I love that for you, you know
Exactly. So, Sasha, just to wrap it up, I want to tell everybody where they can find you, your website, any free or paid offerings.
Yes, so the website is coming very soon, but you can reach out to me on IG at Sasha Harris _ Greenidge. I will give you the link to a clarity call to
Thank
go
you.
at the bottom. There is a basic education tier that I've now created, a middle tier that goes deeper with more attention and more coaching sessions, because it is a lot and it's giving
Yeah.
people that time. And then a VIP session. So a lot of stuff is curated for you, to you, but you're still doing your own work. It's just more added gifts to kind of like help guide you, because they do take time for me to create for you. And it's, you just get the ultimate Voxer access and things like that in between sessions, where you can talk about that. But they're all great if it's something like, oh, I'm just interested, and then I'll see if like later on I want to do something else. Then that basic tier, that emerald tier, is like perfect for you. But all of that for the clarity call will be down below, and that's like the first step.
Great. And is your services online or in person or both?
It's online. So
Okay.
it's but same way through Zoom. And then Voxer is just like a way of messaging or sending voice messages directly to me and just having a little bit more of that intimate, like kind of VIP treatment,
Conversations.
so to speak. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Sasha, so much for being on the podcast today. You're doing amazing things, and
Thank
I
you.
hope you touch many, many people. I feel like you're
I'm
really
hoping
going
so
to.
too. I'm very excited. I'm just so excited to work with more and more people. I just absolutely love it. I'm so happy I get to do what I love now.
That's so great. All right, friends, we'll see you next Monday. Hello, beautiful souls. Thank you for tuning in to the end of the episode with Sasha Greenidge. Please leave a review of this podcast. Share it with your friends and family. I want this podcast to reach as many souls as possible. I feel like the work that we do can help many, many people in this world. You can also find me on ChristinaAngelMessenger.com. That's Christina, no H. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn, Christina Angel Messenger. Please leave any comments below if any aha moments that you have or any questions, and I will send them off to Sasha. Thank you, friends. See you next week.